caterer's hand was shaking when he pressed the manila folder into mine. We were standing in the kitchen entrance of the Hilton Ballroom, Portland, Oregon, where my daughter Emily had just married Carlos Rodriguez 20 minutes earlier. The reception was in full swing. I could hear the DJ announcing the first dance through the walls. "Mr. Bennett," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry to do this on today of all days, but I can't watch this happen again. Not to another father." I looked down at the folder, then back at his face. James Park. The business card on top read, Park Catering Services. He was maybe 35, professional-looking in his white chef's coat, but his eyes held something I recognized from my years as a high school principal. Fear. The kind a good person has when they know something terrible and can't stay silent. "I don't understand," I said. "Your new son-in-law," James said, glancing over his shoulder toward the ballroom doors. "Carlos Rodriguez. I went to high school with him." "Sir, he did this exact same thing to his own mother 3 years ago. She lost her house. Everything. I have proof in there." He nodded at the folder. "His mother, Maria Rodriguez, she lives in a state care facility now. Medicaid. Carlos put her there after he cleaned out her accounts and took her property. She was 62. She's 65 now, and she'll never get out." The music swelled. I heard Emily's laugh, that bright sound I'd loved since she was 3 years old. $45,000. That's what I'd spent on this wedding. Most of my retirement savings. Emily had wanted everything perfect, and I'd given it to her because she was all I had left after Susan died. "That's a serious accusation," I said carefully. "I know." James pulled out his phone, showed me a photo. An older woman, hollow-eyed, in a nursing home bed. That's Maria. I visit her sometimes. Carlos was her only child, too. She raised him alone after her husband left, just like you raised Emily after your wife passed. I heard you talking about it during the planning meetings. My chest tightened. "How did you—" "Emily mentioned refinancing your house to help with Carlos's business startup. She said it casually when we were going over the payment schedule. Said you two would be meeting with the bank next week." His eyes held mine. "Mr. Bennett, Carlos doesn't have a business. It's a scam. He's done it before. The court records are in that folder. I printed everything yesterday after Emily mentioned the mortgage. I opened the folder. Police reports, court documents, a restraining order filed by Maria Rodriguez against her son in 2021, bank fraud charges, probation records, and photos. Carlos, younger, standing outside a house with a for sale sign, Maria's house, according to the property records attached. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because I was Maria's caterer too. Small wedding, backyard thing, when Carlos married his first wife. I should have said something then, but I was young. I thought it wasn't my business." His jaw tightened. "Maria called me 6 months after that wedding, crying, asking if I had any photos from that day, because Carlos had taken all her photo albums when he moved her stuff out. I gave her what I had. Then I watched as the house sold, as she ended up in that facility, as Carlos disappeared with everything. I'm not letting that happen again. Not when I can stop it." The ballroom doors opened. Emily appeared, radiant in her white dress, looking for me. "Dad, they're about to cut the cake. We need you for photos." I closed the folder. "I'll be right there, honey." She smiled and disappeared back inside. James Park was watching me with an intensity that made my hands go cold. "What do I do?" I asked. "Read everything tonight. There's a number in there for Maria's elder law attorney. She tried to sue to get her property back, but ran out of money for legal fees. Carlos has done this before, and he'll do it again." He stepped back toward his kitchen. "I have to get back to work. I'm sorry, Mr. Bennett. I'm sorry this is how you found out. But better now than in 6 months when your house is gone." I stood there holding that folder while my daughter's wedding reception continued without me, while she danced with a man I suddenly realized I knew nothing about. Carlos Rodriguez, 29 years old. "Entrepreneur," Emily had said. "Between ventures," she'd explained when I asked why he didn't contribute more to the wedding costs. "He's going to be huge, Dad. We just need a little seed capital to get started." I walked back into the ballroom, found my seat at the family table. watched Carlos spin Emily across the dance floor, his smile wide and warm, his hand on her waist proprietary. He caught my eye and winked. I nodded back, my face neutral, while my mind raced through every conversation we'd had over the past 8 months since Emily brought him home for Thanksgiving. The pieces started fitting together in ways that made my stomach turn. I'd met Susan in college. We'd been married 36 years when the cancer took her 2 years ago. Emily was our only child, our miracle baby after years of trying. We'd raised her in our house in the Selwood neighborhood, a modest 3-bedroom I'd bought in 1987 for $90,000. Now worth $700,000, paid off, mine. The only thing of real value I had left besides my pension. Emily had been devastated when Susan died. She'd moved back in with me for 6 months, slept in her childhood bedroom, cried herself to sleep most nights. I'd held her hand and told her it would be okay, that we'd get through it together. Then she'd met Carlos at some marketing conference. Within 2 months, she was moving into his apartment downtown. Within 4, she was engaged. I'd been happy for her. Grateful, even. I didn't want her to spend her 20s taking care of her grieving father. I wanted her to live, to love, to build a family of her own. Carlos had seemed nice enough, charming, maybe a little too focused on money, but Emily worked hard in her marketing job. She deserved someone ambitious. Now I looked at him differently. Looked at the way he'd been so interested in the house when he first visited. "How much is it worth now?" he'd asked, casual, while we grilled burgers in the backyard. Emily had laughed and said, "Dad, Carlos is in real estate investment. He can't help himself." But she'd been pleased when I told her the estimated value. Proud. Then a month ago, Carlos had brought up the business idea, a property flipping company. He had the expertise, Emily had the marketing skills, they just needed capital. $200,000 would be enough for a down payment on their first building. "We could pay you back in a year," Emily had said, her eyes bright with excitement. "Maybe sooner." "We'd be partners, Dad. You'd get 20% of the profits." I'd been cautious, said I needed to think about it. That was a lot of money, but Emily had pushed, and I'd loved seeing her passionate about something again after the long grief of losing her mother. So I'd agreed to at least talk to my bank about a home equity line of credit. We had an appointment scheduled for Tuesday, 3 days from now. The wedding cake appeared. Emily and Carlos posed with the knife, cutting through layers of vanilla and raspberry. Flashbulbs fired. Everyone applauded. Carlos fed Emily a bite, tender, loving. She fed him one back, laughing when frosting got on his nose. A perfect moment. A perfect lie. I excused myself and went to the men's room, locked myself in a stall, and opened the folder again with shaking hands. Read every page. The police report from March 2021. Maria Rodriguez, 62, reporting her son Carlos Rodriguez, 26, had convinced her to sign over power of attorney to help her manage finances after her diabetes diagnosis. Within 2 months, he'd refinanced her house, taken out a $150,000 loan against the equity, and transferred the money to his personal account. When she discovered it, he claimed she'd agreed to invest in his business. When she threatened to report him, he'd had her committed for a 3-day psychiatric evaluation, claiming she was mentally incompetent. The court documents showed Maria had tried to fight back, but Carlos had hired expensive lawyers, had character witnesses testify that his mother was confused, forgetful, that her diabetes medication affected her memory. By the time the judge threw out the incompetency claim, Carlos had already sold the house to cover the loan payments he'd missed. Maria got nothing. The fraud charges were reduced to a misdemeanor due to lack of clear evidence. Carlos claimed it was a business dispute between family members. He got probation. I thought about my own appointment at the bank on Tuesday, thought about the documents Carlos had offered to help me prepare. "I'll come with you," he'd said. "I know what banks look for. We'll make sure everything's solid." He was going to do it again. He was going to do exactly what he'd done to his mother. But this time, he had something his mother hadn't given him. A wedding, a daughter who loved him, and a father-in-law who'd just spent his retirement savings celebrating their union. I splashed water on my face, looked at myself in the mirror. 63 years old, gray hair, lines around my eyes, a slight tremor in my hands from the stress of the past 2 years. I'd been a high school principal for 30 years. I knew manipulators when I saw them. I knew how predators isolated their victims, how they built trust, how they exploited love. I'd missed it. I'd been so grateful Emily was happy again that I'd missed every red flag. The question was what to do now. Confront Carlos? He'd deny everything, turn it into a he-said situation. Tell Emily? She was in love. She'd just married him an hour ago. Would she even believe me over the husband she'd vowed to spend her life with? I dried my hands and walked back to the reception. Emily found me immediately, wrapping her arms around me in a tight hug. Dad, where were you? We missed you during the cake cutting. Just needed a minute, sweetheart. I held her close, smelled the jasmine perfume Susan used to wear that Emily had adopted after the funeral. I'm so happy for you. She pulled back, her eyes searching mine. Are you okay? You seem off. Just emotional, I said, which wasn't a lie. You look so much like your mother today. Her eyes filled with tears. I wish she could be here. She is, honey. She's here. Emily hugged me again. Then Carlos was there, sliding an arm around her waist, pulling her away. Come on, Mrs. Rodriguez, he said, grinning. Time for the bouquet toss. She laughed and let him lead her away. He glanced back at me over his shoulder. His smile didn't quite reach his eyes. I found James Park in the kitchen, directing his staff through dinner service cleanup. He saw me and straightened immediately. Did you read it? He asked. All of it. What are you going to do? I don't know yet, I admitted. But I need to ask you something. How did you get all these records? Public information, mostly. Court filings. Police reports. I hired a private investigator for $200 to pull it all together after Emily mentioned the house refinancing. Cost me out of pocket, but it was worth it. He wiped his hands on a towel. Mr. Bennett, I know this ruins your daughter's wedding day. I know you probably hate me right now, but that man is dangerous. Not physically, maybe, but financially. He'll take everything you have and convince Emily you agreed to it. Then when there's nothing left, he'll leave. That's what he did to his first wife. He was married before? James nodded. Divorced 6 months after Maria lost the house. The wife got nothing in the settlement. Carlos claimed she'd been complicit in the fraud, threatened to press charges against her too if she fought the divorce. She signed papers, giving up any claims, and disappeared. I found her on Facebook. She's using her maiden name, works at a Target in Sacramento. I messaged her, but she wouldn't talk to me. Just said to warn whoever his next target was. I felt sick. Does Emily know he was married before? I don't know. You'd have to ask her. The DJ announced the last dance. I thanked James, took the folder, and went back to my table. Watched Emily and Carlos sway together under the dimmed lights, her head on his shoulder, his arms wrapped around her. Young love. New beginnings, built on lies I couldn't yet prove to her. I went home alone at midnight. My house felt enormous and empty without Susan, without Emily. I sat at the kitchen table where we'd had family dinners for 3 decades and spread out every document from James's folder. Read everything again, made notes, found patterns. Then I did what I should have done before agreeing to the mortgage meeting. I looked up Carlos Rodriguez online, found his LinkedIn profile, claimed to have an MBA from Portland State, claimed to have worked for 3 major real estate firms. I called an old colleague who worked at PSU's registrar office, asked her to check enrollment records as a favor. Carlos Rodriguez had taken 2 classes in 2018, dropped both, no degree. I called another friend who worked in real estate, asked about the companies Carlos listed. One had gone bankrupt in 2020. One had never existed. One had a record of Carlos working there for 3 months before being fired for falsifying documents. I made more calls, found Carlos's first wife through her mother's Facebook page, sent a careful message introducing myself, saying I was Emily's father, asking if she'd be willing to talk. She responded within an hour, said she'd call me tomorrow, that she was sorry, that she'd tried to warn people, but Carlos threatened her. At 3 in the morning, I made a decision. I called the number James had given me from Maria Rodriguez's attorney, left a voicemail explaining who I was, what I'd learned, asking for advice. Then I called my own attorney, Jerry Blackwell, who'd handled Susan's estate, left another voicemail. Sunday morning, Emily called. Her voice was bright, happy, exhausted from the wedding. Dad, thank you again for everything. Yesterday was perfect. I'm glad, sweetheart. So Tuesday, right? The bank appointment? Carlos and I were thinking we could meet you there at 10. We already started filling out the preliminary application online last night. Just need your signature and income verification. My blood ran cold. They'd already started the process. Without me. Emily, can I ask you something? Of course. Did Carlos mention he was married before? Silence. Then, carefully, he told me about that. It was a mistake. They were young. Why? Just curious. You never mentioned it. It didn't seem relevant. Dad, is something wrong? Everything was wrong. But I couldn't do this over the phone. No, honey. I'm just tired. Big day yesterday. Okay, well, get some rest. We'll see you Tuesday. I hung up and stared at the phone. She knew about the first marriage, which meant Carlos had controlled that narrative already. Painted himself as the victim of youthful mistakes. Probably. Made the ex-wife into the villain of his origin story. Jerry Blackwell called back at 9. I explained everything. Sent him photos of the documents. He was silent for a long moment after I finished. Richard, he said finally, this is attempted elder financial abuse. Textbook. You need to cancel that bank appointment immediately, and you need to get a restraining order. Against my daughter's husband? Against Carlos? Yes. And possibly against Emily if she's complicit. She's not complicit. She doesn't know. Are you sure? His voice was gentle. Because what you're describing sounds like they've already started paperwork without your consent. That's fraud, Richard. Even if Emily thinks she's helping. I thought about Emily filling out applications last night during her wedding night. Excited about the business, their future, our partnership. I need to talk to her first, I said. Don't. Jerry's voice was sharp now. Richard, listen to me. Do not confront them until we have legal protection in place. Carlos has done this before. He knows how to manipulate situations. If you confront him, he'll either disappear with whatever he's already gotten, or he'll accelerate his plan. You need to freeze all your accounts, put alerts on your credit, and file for a restraining order based on these prior court records. But Emily married a con artist. She married him yesterday. She's on her honeymoon high. If you try to tell her who her new husband really is, she will not believe you. She'll defend him, and he'll use that defense to isolate her from you completely. Then he'll take everything anyway, and you'll have lost both your daughter and your house. I closed my eyes. Jerry was right. I knew he was right, but the thought of going behind Emily's back, of getting a restraining order against her husband the day after her wedding, made me feel like I was betraying her. What do I do? I asked. First, we document everything. I'm going to file an emergency petition for a protection order Monday morning based on Carlos's prior acts against his mother. We'll use the court records as evidence of a pattern. Second, you call your bank right now and put a freeze on all accounts. Tell them you're a victim of identity theft attempts and you want alerts on any applications or changes. Third, you do not meet with them Tuesday. You text Emily and say you're not feeling well, need to postpone. Buy us time. How much time? A week, maybe 2. Enough to get court orders in place, enough to have leverage for a conversation with Emily that she'll actually hear instead of dismissing. Maria Rodriguez's attorney called back that afternoon. Her name was Patricia Chen, and her voice was tired but determined. Mr. Bennett, I'm glad James reached out to you. Carlos Rodriguez should be in prison, but the system failed his mother. I'm not going to let him do this to another family. Can you tell me what happened? She walked me through it. The slow manipulation. Maria had been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, was managing it fine. But Carlos had convinced her she needed help with her finances as she got older. The power of attorney had seemed reasonable. He was her son. She trusted him. Then the refinancing. Then the money disappearing. Then the psychiatric hold when she objected. The judge eventually ruled Maria was competent, Patricia said. But by then the damage was done. Carlos had sold the house. Claimed the money went to business expenses he could document just barely enough to avoid criminal charges. Civil suit would have cost more than Maria would ever recover. She's on Medicaid now, in a care facility in Gresham. She has diabetes-related complications that went untreated during the stress of losing her home. She'll never live independently again. Does she see Carlos? He hasn't visited her once in 3 years. He sends her a birthday card every year. No money, just a card. I thought about Emily, about how much she'd loved her mother, about how she'd visited Susan in hospice every single day for 6 weeks, about how she'd held Susan's hand when she died and promised to take care of me. What if Emily is pregnant? I asked suddenly. Patricia was quiet. Then Carlos has another anchor, another reason for Emily to stay, to forgive him, to believe his version of events when you try to warn her. Oh God. Mr. Bennett, I've seen this pattern dozens of times in elder law. The predator isn't always a stranger. Sometimes it's the son-in-law who seems charming, the new spouse who has all the business ideas, the grandchild who just needs a little help. They identify vulnerable targets, widows, widowers, people who are lonely or grieving. They love bomb them through family members, and they take everything. How do I protect Emily? You protect yourself first. That's the only leverage you'll have to protect her later. If you let Carlos take your house, you'll have nothing, and Emily will still be married to him. If you fight now, you'll at least have resources to help her when she finally sees who he really is. And she will see it, eventually. They always do. The question is whether you'll still be financially stable enough to catch her when she falls. Monday morning, Jerry filed the emergency petition. By afternoon, we had a temporary restraining order against Carlos Rodriguez. He was to have no contact with me, no access to my property, no involvement in my financial affairs. The order cited his prior court history with his mother as evidence of a pattern of elder financial exploitation. The sheriff's deputy delivered it at 4 p.m. Emily called me at 4:15, crying, "Dad, what did you do? There are police at our apartment. They're giving Carlos some kind of court order about you. He says you filed a restraining order against him. On our honeymoon? Dad, how could you?" My heart broke at the pain in her voice. Emily, I need you to listen to me. I need you to really listen, without interrupting, without defending him. Can you do that? Why would I listen to someone who just destroyed my marriage 3 days after my wedding? Because I'm your father, and I love you, and I'm trying to protect you. From what? From my husband? From being happy? From losing everything the way Carlos's mother did. I heard her breath catch, pressed on. Emily, Carlos did this before, to his own mother. He convinced her to give him power of attorney, refinanced her house, took the money, and left her in a nursing home. I have court records, police reports. I have the name of the attorney who tried to help her. This isn't about me not liking him or being difficult. This is about him being a con artist who targets vulnerable people through their families. That's insane. You're insane. Carlos told me about his mother. She had mental problems. She made false accusations after Carlos tried to help her manage her diabetes. He's lying, Emily. No, Dad, you're lying. Or you've been lied to by someone. Who told you this? Where did you get these so-called records? The caterer at your wedding, James Park. He went to high school with Carlos. He watched Carlos do this to Maria, and he couldn't stand by while Carlos did it to another family. The caterer? The caterer? Her voice went shrill. You're destroying my marriage based on gossip from the caterer? Based on public court records, Emily. Based on police reports. Based on conversations with his mother's attorney and his ex-wife. Silence. Then, coldly, his ex-wife, who was complicit in fraud and trying to cover her own tracks by blaming him, so Carlos had prepared her for this too, had already given her a narrative to explain away anyone who might warn her. I felt exhausted suddenly, ancient. Emily, I said quietly, why were you and Carlos filling out mortgage applications the night of your wedding? What? You told me Sunday morning you'd started the preliminary application online the night before. Who starts financial paperwork on their wedding night? We were excited. We wanted to get the process moving. Carlos said the sooner we submitted everything, the sooner we could. She stopped. The sooner you could what, honey? None of your business. Emily, I love you. I would never try to hurt you. But I need you to step back and look at this objectively. Carlos has a history of financial fraud against a family member. He rushed you into marriage 8 months after meeting you. He pushed for access to my house and my money immediately after the wedding. He was preparing to submit mortgage applications without my knowledge or consent. And now that I've put legal protection in place, he's painting me as the villain. Does any of that seem normal to you? You put legal protection in place against my husband the day after my wedding. Her voice cracked. You didn't even talk to me first. You didn't give me a chance to. To what? To defend him? To convince me I was wrong? Emily, I'm not wrong. I've spent 3 days verifying everything. I've talked to lawyers. I've read court transcripts. I've seen photos of Maria Rodriguez in the nursing home Carlos abandoned her in. This is real. I don't believe you. Then do your own research. Talk to Maria. Talk to Patricia Chen, her attorney. Talk to Carlos's ex-wife. Her name is Jennifer Morrison. She lives in Sacramento. Ask Carlos why he lied about having an MBA. Ask him why he was fired from every real estate job he listed on his resume. Ask him. Stop it. She was sobbing now. Just stop. I can't listen to this. You're trying to ruin my life. I'm trying to save it. Well, you're doing a great job, Dad. Really great. My husband now has a restraining order against him. I'm crying on what should be the happiest week of my life, and my father thinks I'm stupid enough to marry a con artist without noticing. I don't think you're stupid. I think you're in love. I think you're grieving your mother and you wanted to build a new family, and Carlos gave you that hope. I think he's very good at what he does, and he targeted us deliberately. Us? She laughed bitterly. There is no us, Dad. You made sure of that. Don't call me. Don't text me. I need time to process the fact that my father would do this to me. She hung up. I sat, holding the phone, staring at the wall of family photos Susan had arranged so carefully. Emily at 5, missing her front teeth. Emily at 12, braces and awkward limbs. Emily at 16, holding her acceptance letter to college. Emily at her mother's funeral, broken. And one photo from yesterday, from before the ceremony. Me walking Emily down the aisle, her arm linked in mine, both of us smiling. I'd had a copy printed this morning from the photographer's preview. Had planned to frame it for my desk. Now it just looked like the end of something. Tuesday morning, I missed the bank appointment I'd canceled without telling them. My phone buzzed with texts from Emily, from Carlos, angry messages about broken promises, family betrayal, legal consequences. I blocked Carlos's number, left Emily's unblocked but didn't respond. Jerry called at noon. Good news and bad news. Good news, the restraining order is holding and I've frozen all your accounts. Bad news. Emily and Carlos filed a counter-petition, claiming you're suffering from dementia and paranoid delusions following your wife's death. They're requesting a competency evaluation. What? It's straight from Carlos's playbook with his mother. If he can get you declared incompetent, Emily can seek guardianship, and then they'd have legal access to your finances anyway. But I'm not incompetent. I know that. But it's going to require a formal evaluation to prove it. I've already filed our response and requested an independent psychiatric evaluation. The judge scheduled a hearing for next Monday. A week. I had a week to prove I was sane while my daughter and her husband tried to have me declared otherwise. Patricia Chen called that afternoon. Mr. Bennett, Maria wants to talk to you. Would you be willing to visit her? I drove to the care facility in Gresham that evening. Maria Rodriguez was in a shared room on the second floor, sitting in a wheelchair by the window. She was thin, gray, looked older than 65, looked like someone who'd been broken by life and was just waiting for it to end. Mr. Bennett, she said when I introduced myself. Her voice was soft, heavily accented. Patricia told me about your daughter. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for what Carlos did to you. She smiled sadly. He's my son. I still love him, even after everything. That's the worst part. Knowing what he is, and still wishing he'd visit. Still hoping maybe he's changed. Patricia says that's common with victims of family abuse. We love them anyway. I sat in the visitor chair. Can you tell me what happened? She told me her story. How proud she'd been when Carlos got accepted to college. How she'd worked 2 jobs to pay his tuition before he dropped out. How she'd supported his dreams of being an entrepreneur even when venture after venture failed. How his first marriage had seemed like a new beginning, but then collapsed. How he'd seemed so concerned about her health when the diabetes diagnosis came. He was so sweet about it, Maria said. Said he wanted to make sure I was taken care of. Said if anything happened to him, I should be able to access his accounts to cover my medical expenses. I thought I was signing joint account paperwork. I signed power of attorney. She looked at her hands. I never imagined he'd use it to steal from me. He's my baby, my only child. I gave him everything. Emily is my only child too, I said quietly. Then fight, Maria said, looking at me with sudden intensity. Fight hard, fight dirty, fight in ways that will make your daughter hate you temporarily. Because Carlos will not stop until he has everything, and by the time Emily realizes what's happening, it will be too late. You think she'll leave him? She won't. She'll stay because she's embarrassed, because she doesn't want to admit she was wrong, because he'll make her feel like it's somehow her fault. He's very good at that part. Making it your fault. How long did it take you to realize? That he was stealing from me? About 3 months. That he was really gone, really not coming back, really didn't love me? About a year. I still don't fully believe it some days. I thanked her for talking to me. She grabbed my hand as I stood to leave. Mr. Bennett, I failed. I lost everything, and I couldn't save my son from himself. But maybe you can save your daughter. Not from Carlos. She'll have to save herself from him eventually. But save her from losing you too. Fight for your assets so that when she needs help escaping, you'll be able to give it to her, because she will need help, and Carlos will make sure she has no one else to turn to. The competency evaluation was Wednesday morning. A court-appointed psychiatrist named Dr. Helen Walsh spent 3 hours testing my memory, my reasoning, my emotional stability. Asked about Susan's death, about Emily, about the restraining order, about my allegations against Carlos. I told her everything calmly, with documentation. Showed her the court records, the police reports, the timeline I'd built. She took notes without expression. Mr. Bennett, she said finally, you understand your daughter and son-in-law are arguing you've become paranoid and delusional since your wife's death? That you're fabricating a conspiracy to justify your rejection of Emily's new husband? I understand that's their argument. But paranoia implies irrational fear. My fear is rational. It's based on documented evidence of Carlos's prior behavior. Yet you didn't discover this evidence until after the wedding. Why not before? Because I wasn't looking. I trusted my daughter's judgment. I assumed she'd done due diligence. That was my mistake. Do you think it's possible you're projecting your grief about losing your wife onto your fear of losing your daughter? I considered that. Considered the long nights after Susan died, the empty house, the loneliness. It's possible grief made me more vulnerable to someone like Carlos initially. I wanted Emily to be happy. I wanted her to have a family again. That made me less skeptical than I should have been. But that doesn't make Carlos's criminal record false. It doesn't make Maria Rodriguez's story false. It doesn't make the forged MBA or the falsified employment history false. Dr. Walsh finished her notes. I'll have my report to the court by Friday. Emily called me Friday night. Her voice was different, smaller. Dad, I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth. Always. Did you really talk to Carlos's mother? Yes. On Tuesday. What did she say? I told her. Not the whole story, but enough. Maria's words about still loving him anyway, about wanting to believe he'd changed, about the power of attorney, she thought was something else. Emily was quiet for a long time. Carlos says she's mentally ill, that she made the whole thing up. Emily, there are police reports, court records. They're public information. You can verify everything yourself. I know. I did. I spent all day today looking through court filings. Her voice broke. Dad, why didn't you tell me before the wedding? I didn't know before the wedding. James Park gave me the information on your wedding day. The caterer really did that? Yes. Carlos says James made it all up because Carlos fired his catering company from a different event years ago. Some kind of revenge thing. Did Carlos work events where he'd have the authority to fire caterers? Because none of his employment history suggests he was ever in that position. Another long silence. I'm pregnant. My heart stopped. Oh, Emily. 3 months. I found out 2 weeks ago. We were going to tell you after the honeymoon, make it a surprise. Carlos was so happy, Dad. He cried when I showed him the test. He said he wanted our baby to have everything he never had growing up. He said your house would be part of our baby's inheritance someday, part of making sure our family was secure. Emily, listen to me very carefully. Having a baby doesn't change who Carlos is. It doesn't make him safe. It makes him more dangerous, because now you're tied to him for life, no matter what. I know. She was crying. I know, Dad. I read everything. I called Jennifer, his ex-wife. She finally answered after I called 6 times. She told me a sob. She told me everything. She said Carlos convinced her his mother was crazy, that Maria had stolen from him, that they were the victims. She believed it until after the divorce, when she found out the truth. She said he'd started talking about her parents' finances toward the end, about how her father needed help managing his retirement accounts. She said she left before it got that far. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm so stupid. I'm so fucking stupid. You're not stupid. You're in love. That's different. I married a monster. You married a con artist. That's not the same as a monster, but it's still dangerous. What do I do? You come home. You get your own attorney. You file for an annulment or divorce immediately. You document everything, every conversation, every text message, every financial document. You protect yourself and your baby. He'll fight it. He'll make it ugly. Yes, he will. But you'll survive it, and I'll be here to help you through it. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry I didn't believe you. I'm just glad you're safe. Am I? Safe? Her voice was very small, because Carlos knows I've been calling his ex-wife. He knows I looked up the court records. He asked me tonight why I was being so distant, why I was questioning him, whether I was talking to you behind his back. He was smiling when he asked, but his eyes were... She stopped. I'm scared. Where are you right now? Our apartment. He's asleep. I'm in the bathroom, with the door locked. Emily, I need you to listen very carefully. Pack a bag with essentials. Your documents. Your laptop. Some clothes. Don't take anything. Carlos would notice immediately. Then tomorrow morning, tell him you're going to work. Drive here instead. Bring everything. We'll figure out the rest from here. He'll know where I am. The restraining order means he can't come here. If he tries, I call the police. You'll be safe. Okay. Her voice steadied slightly. Okay, I can do that. I'll come tomorrow. I love you, honey. I love you too, Dad. I'm sorry I didn't. I should have. Shh. Not now. Tomorrow. We'll talk tomorrow. She hung up. I sat in my kitchen with my phone in my hand, praying she'd actually come, praying Carlos wouldn't sense her plans, praying I'd done enough. Saturday morning came and went. No, Emily. I called at noon. Voicemail. Called at 1. Voicemail. Texted at 2. No response. At 3, Patricia Chen called. Mr. Bennett, Emily, and Carlos were just at Maria's care facility. Emily was asking Maria questions about what happened. Carlos was there, but he stayed in the car. Maria says Emily looked scared. Did Maria tell her everything? Yes, everything. Emily took photos of the court documents Maria had kept. She was crying when she left. But she didn't come here. No. But Richard, she's looking for answers. That's a good sign. It means she doesn't believe Carlos's version anymore. Emily finally called at 7 p.m. Her voice was flat, exhausted. I can't leave him, Dad. What? Why not? Because I'm pregnant, and I don't have anywhere to go, and I can't afford an attorney, and Carlos said if I leave, he'll file for full custody and claim I'm mentally unstable like you. He said I'd lose the baby. He said no judge would give custody to someone whose own father thought they were incompetent enough to marry a con artist without noticing. That's not what I said. I know. But that's how he'll spin it. And maybe he's right. Maybe I am too stupid to be a mother if I couldn't see who he really was. Emily, you're not stupid and you're not trapped. You can come here. You can live with me until the baby is born. Longer if you need to. We'll hire an attorney. We'll document everything Carlos has done. We'll prove he's the danger, not you. He showed me the competency evaluation petition, the one you're fighting. He says if you can be evaluated for mental incompetence, so can I. He says family court judges always favor the parent who has stable housing and income. He makes more money than I do. He can hire better lawyers. And I'm pregnant and emotional, and my own father got a restraining order against my husband days after my wedding. How does that look? She was right. Carlos had thought this through, had prepared for the possibility she'd figure him out, had laid groundwork to trap her, even if she tried to leave. Emily, I said carefully, what does Carlos want? He wants you to drop the restraining order. He wants you to agree to the mortgage refinancing. He wants a formal apology and damages for defamation. And he wants me to stop talking to his mother and his ex-wife and everyone else you set me up to talk to. And if I do that, he says, we'll leave you alone. He says we'll move forward with the business plan, pay you back with interest, prove you were wrong about him. And you believe that? Long silence. No, but I don't see another option. The other option is you leave anyway. You accept that he'll fight dirty, that it'll be ugly, that you'll have to be stronger than you've ever been. But you do it because staying with him means you and your baby will never be safe. He will take everything eventually, Emily. From you, from me, from everyone. That's what he does. I'm tired, Dad. I'm tired and I'm pregnant and I just want this to be over. I know, honey. But giving him what he wants won't make it over. It'll just make it worse. What if I lose the baby because of the stress? What if fighting him is what causes something terrible to happen? I didn't have an answer for that. Maybe nothing I could say would be right. Emily, I said finally, I'm going to keep the restraining order in place. I'm going to keep my house and my finances protected. And my door is open to you anytime, day or night, for any reason. You are not alone in this. You are not trapped. And when you're ready to leave, I will be here. And if I never leave, if I decide to stay with him and make it work, then I'll still love you. I'll still be your father. But I won't finance the con. I won't hand over my house to make it easier for him to exploit you. She hung up without saying goodbye. Monday morning, the court hearing on competency was quick. Dr. Walsh's report concluded I was fully competent, that my concerns about Carlos were rational and based on documented evidence, and that the counter-petition appeared to be a manipulation tactic common in financial exploitation cases. The judge made the restraining order permanent and ordered Carlos to pay court costs. Jerry called me after. You won, Richard. Completely. The judge was not impressed with Carlos's claims. It doesn't feel like winning. Emily is still with him. Emily is an adult making her own choices. You've done everything you can. Have I? I spent the next week waiting for Emily to call, to text, to show up at my door. She didn't. Carlos's social media showed photos of them at restaurants, at home, her hand on her belly, both of them smiling. Happy couple, new baby on the way, building their future. The comments were full of congratulations and heart emojis. Only I could see the tightness around Emily's eyes in the photos, the way her smile didn't quite reach them, the way she angled her body slightly away from Carlos in every shot. 2 weeks after the court hearing, Jennifer Morrison called me. Mr. Bennett, I just got a weird message from Emily. She sent me her apartment address and asked if I'd be willing to meet her there when Carlos is at work on Thursday. She said she needs advice about something but couldn't talk on her phone. Did you agree? Yes, but I'm nervous. What if it's a trap? What if Carlos put her up to it to try to get evidence against me for the old fraud case? Then don't go alone. Take someone with you. Better yet, tell her to meet you in public somewhere. I suggested that. She said she can't leave without Carlos noticing. She said he tracks her phone. I felt cold. He tracks her phone? That's what she said. Mr. Bennett, I think she wants to leave him but doesn't know how. Then help her, please. Tell her I said I'm here whenever she's ready. Jennifer met with Emily on Thursday afternoon. Called me immediately after. She's leaving him, Jennifer said, her voice shaky. She's planning to leave him next week. She has some money saved in a separate account he doesn't know about. She's been copying financial documents and text messages. She says she has proof he's been manipulating her, isolating her from friends, tracking her movements. She says the only reason she stayed this long is because she needed time to build a case for custody. Did she say how she's going to do it? She has a doctor's appointment next Tuesday, routine prenatal checkup. She's going to tell Carlos she's going. Then instead she's going to drive to a women's shelter. She already called them. They have a bed waiting. She'll file for divorce from there, with their legal help. She doesn't want to come to your house, because that's the first place Carlos would look. Smart, I said, my throat tight. She wanted me to tell you she's sorry. She said she should have believed you from the beginning. She said she loves you, and she'll call you when she's safe. Tuesday came. I didn't hear anything. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I finally called Jennifer. Have you heard from her? I asked. No. I'm worried. She was supposed to update me, but I haven't heard anything since our meeting last week. I tried calling Emily. Voicemail. Texted. No response. Saturday morning, I drove past their apartment. Carlos's car was in the lot. So was Emily's. I circled the block 3 times, trying to decide if I should knock on the door, if that would make things worse. As I passed the 4th time, Emily came out. She was moving slowly, one hand on her back, one on her belly. Carlos was with her, his hand on her elbow, guiding her to the car. She was wearing sunglasses, even though it was overcast. She didn't look in my direction as they drove away. I followed them, tried to stay far enough back that Carlos wouldn't notice. They drove to the hospital. I parked far away and waited. An hour later, they came back out. Carlos had his arm around Emily's shoulders. She was crying. I knew before I got the text, but I still felt the world tilt when Emily's message came through at 6 p.m. that night. Dad, I lost the baby, miscarriage. I'm okay physically, but I can't talk right now. I'm sorry. I sat in my car in the hospital parking lot and cried for the grandchild I'd never meet, for my daughter who'd lost so much in such a short time, for all the ways this situation had spiraled beyond my control. Patricia Chen called me Sunday. Richard, I need to tell you something. Maria Rodriguez died yesterday. Heart attack. She was 65 years old. Did Carlos know? The care facility called him. He told them he'd make arrangements but wouldn't be able to attend any service. He's too busy with his wife's medical situation. Her voice hardened. Maria died without ever seeing her son again, without ever getting her house back, or her money, or her dignity. She died alone in a care facility, and her son couldn't be bothered to say goodbye. Emily lost the baby, I said. I heard. Jennifer told me. I'm so sorry. Patricia, what if the miscarriage wasn't natural? What if Carlos... Don't go there, she said sharply. Don't even think it. You can't prove it, and it'll make you crazy. Focus on what you can control, which is being there when Emily finally leaves him. If she leaves him, she will. The baby was his leverage. Now she has nothing tying her to him except a marriage license. She'll leave. The question is whether she'll have anything left when she does. Emily didn't call, didn't text. Her social media went quiet. When I drove past the apartment again 2 weeks later, both cars were gone. The building manager told me they'd broken their lease and moved. No forwarding address. I filed a missing persons report. The police investigated and found Emily had called them herself to say she was fine, she'd moved voluntarily, she was taking time away from family stress. She didn't want contact with her father. Case closed. Jerry helped me file for legal visitation rights as her parent. The court denied it. Emily was an adult. She had the right to cut off contact if she chose. I hired a private investigator. Found them in Seattle 3 months later, a small apartment in Capitol Hill. Carlos had a job at a tech startup, some kind of sales position. Emily was working from home doing freelance marketing. They looked fine in the photos the investigator took. Normal, a couple rebuilding after loss. Except Emily had lost weight she couldn't afford to lose. And in every photo, Carlos was touching her. A hand on her back, an arm around her waist, fingers laced through hers, never letting her be separate. The investigator reported Emily went to work at a coffee shop twice a week, always alone, always for exactly 2 hours before returning home. I thought about going there, about sitting down across from her, about begging her to come home, but Jerry and Patricia both advised against it. She knows where you are, they said. She'll come back when she's ready. If she's ever ready. It's been 8 months now since the wedding, since James Park pressed that manila folder into my hands and changed everything. I still live in my house, still have my pension and my savings. Carlos never got what he came for, but I lost Emily anyway. I visit Maria Rodriguez's grave sometimes. It's in a public cemetery in Gresham, a small marker that Patricia arranged through a victims fund. Carlos never contributed to the funeral costs. I bring flowers. Tell Maria I'm sorry I couldn't save my daughter the way I wish someone had saved her. James Park calls me every few months to check in, asks if I've heard from Emily, apologizes again for ruining her wedding day, even though I tell him every time he has nothing to apologize for. He saved me, even if I couldn't save Emily. Jennifer Morrison sent me a card at Christmas. Said she thinks about Emily every day. Said she hopes Emily finds the strength she found to leave. Said it took her 2 years to finally walk away from Carlos. And even now she sometimes doubts herself. But at least she walked away before she lost everything. I keep Emily's room the way it was. Keep hoping one day I'll hear a knock on the door and find her standing there with a suitcase, ready to come home, ready to start over. I know what Patricia and Jerry would say, that I'm holding onto false hope, that Emily made her choice, that I need to move on. But she's my daughter, my only child, the person Susan and I built our entire lives around, and I'll keep hoping until the day I die, keep that door unlocked, keep that room ready, because maybe tomorrow will be the day she finds the courage to leave. And when she does, I'll be here. Even if tomorrow never comes, I'll still be here, waiting, loving her, ready to catch her when she finally falls. That's what fathers do. We wait, we hope, and we keep the light on, no matter how long the night lasts.